Hello, welcome back to Nerdy Void Nation. Today we're doing part 2 of my top 10 My Hero fights. The previous video, part 1, covered 10 to 6. This video will cover 5 to 1. If you haven't seen my previous video, the part 1 to this video, check that out. Let's get started in my top 5 best My Hero fights. I sort of cheated with my fifth pick. I have two fights in fifth place. I just couldn't decide between them. The first of them is Bakugo vs. All For One. I still think to this day that Bakugo vs. All For One is the best animated fight of My Hero. It also just a really great moment for Bakugo. It brings his character full circle in my opinion and makes him a hero in everyone's eyes. I really love that Bakugo is the one to save All Might because if you see in season 3, it was Bakugo has a lot to regret, like he's the one that ended All Might. Now he's the reason that All Might lives another day. It's really nice to see. I also love that like everyone watching is like, oh, I know that kid. He was from the sports festival. He was the guy that got captured. Like, I love that he's also getting recognition, like Deku got recognition in his fight against Shigaraki. Bakugo is getting recognition in his fight against All For One. I also love how fast Bakugo is moving. His sort of movement at flames turned into blue, but I'm not sure if he has blue on him because of the gear shift that Deku gave him, or is it just because he's moving that fast? Because he's moving so fast that he's speed blistered All For One in this fight, which is amazing. And I love how in this fight he moves so fast that like he has to hurt his body, which is really really cool because it's very similar to how Deku at the start of the series will have to hurt himself to use One For All. Now Bakugo is hurting himself to move super fast. Bakugo smiling as All Might gives him his sort of I forgot which side it is, but gives him one of the not destroyed arm from his iron suit. It's really great to see because it's just like Bakugo hero was All Might, and like All Might gave his power to Deku, he sort of gives some of his power to Bakugo, even though it's not really anything. It's enough for Bakugo to just be happy to be acknowledged by his hero, which is really nice to see. It's just a very nice moment seeing Bakugo smile as All Might gives him the support item. I love that in this fight, All For One admits the person that pisses him off the most isn't All Might, isn't Deku, is Bakugo, because Bakugo reminds him of the second user. And he hates the second user the most because the second user is the one who saved One For All from his brother. He's the reason that One For All started. He's the reason why All For One could never find peace because there were so many One For All users because of the second user being able to save his brother. I also love in this fight you see how much fun Bakugo's having. Also love how like when he's moving super fast, it's not like a really good like cool run. It's more like clumsy. He's like flipping, falling over as he uses his explosions to propel him forward. I really love that. And some of the attacks that in this episode look amazing from Bakugo. I also really enjoy the backstory of All For One in this episode, where we see All For One at his brother, how he sort of started as a crime boss. But I just love that they don't try to make All For One into a sympathy character. They just show you what his background was, what his life was. But he was always evil, and I really love that because a lot of series will tend to try and make you sympathize for the villain. And whilst we do that for Shigaraki, which I'm fine with, I love that My Hero doesn't do that with All For One. I really love some of the moves Bakugo uses in this fight. The way he uses shred bullets against the Omni Factor Unleash is really cool. He basically destroys All For One from the inside before All For One is able to use his Omni Factor Unleash. I also really love how the final move of Bakugo looks. The House Impact looks amazing. I really love the black lines that they draw around Bakugo. I also really love how when he hits All For One with it, he doesn't talk about like this being his story, his main energy, main character vibe. Like in this fight, you can tell Bakugo going because he's very humble. He's like, "This is not my story. This is not your story. This is our story." I really love that he's talking when he says our stories. He's talking not just about Taku. He's talking about the entire Class 1I, the and maybe even Class 1B. He's talking about the children and their future, not about like old men, which I really love. I just a very cool way for him to kill All For One, or at least turn him into a baby, which I really love. How you see like people from across the city can see like Bakugo explosion. What's her name? Lady Nagant. Lady Nagant, you can see the explosion from her point of view, which is really cool. I love that Bakugo wants total victory, so he even kills All For One as a baby. And I just love, like, basically All For One uses one of his Baker moves to attack Bakugo, and Bakugo just grabs it in his mouth and then uses his explosion as a chain to just blow the All For One as a baby up. And then he tries to strike All Might both, but like he's too injured, so fights. But I just really love that. I also actually love in this fight Bakugo sort of thanking Edgeshot for saving his life, which was a really nice touch. The reason why this fight is so good is because it sort of brings Bakugo's storyline to a very good close. Like, he gets respected by All Might, he gets admired by the people, which was his biggest problem. He's no longer has this massive ego on him. He's very much fighting with everyone, which I really love. My second fight in fifth place is also Overhaul versus Lemillion Night Ayadaku. I love how this fight is done in stages. The first fight is Lemillion versus Overhaul, where because of Lemillion's power, he's able to get through fast. I just love how dominant Lemillion is in the fight. He takes down Overhaul's cronies very quickly, and then he's dominating against Overhaul, and the only reason Overhaul is able to win against Lemillion is because he targets Eri. One of his minions shoots Eri with a crackless bullet, and so Lemillion has to go and defend Eri, and that's how he loses his power. I love that once Lemillion loses his power, he still fights. I know some people might not like that it was just still images, but I do think the still images work very well. It looks really cool in the fight. I also think the music that plays in the background while Lemillion is still fighting is really, really good and solid. I just really enjoyed, like, if you see the picture on screen right now, he just looks amazing defending Ari with his body. It's multiple times that, like, he shouldn't be in this fight, but he's still trying to defend her. I just really love that. It's a very great heroic moment for Lemillion. It's also really sad. Like, this fight is one of the most saddest fights in My Hero because of the consequences. Like, Lemillion now lost the power, is still trying to defend Ari. And Ari, God help, I feel some responsibility for that. But I do like how Night Ayadaku eventually break in and appear to help Lemillion out. I also really like when Night Eye appears, he basically goes over and embraces Lemillion, and then he tells Deku and Lemillion to run, and take Eri with him. And then there was Night Eye versus Overhaul. Also, I kind of like Overhaul new forms that he keeps taking on in this fight. But I also like the difference between Shigaraki and Overhaul is willing to sacrifice his pawns, his minions, his people for him to gain strength, whereas Shigaraki is never willing to do that. I also love throughout the fight, Night Eye is basically ridiculing Overhaul and telling him the only reason you had to take away the million crack because you could have beat him in a fight. Like he keeps praising his student while fighting Overhaul. But the crazy thing about Night Eye's power is that Night Eye saw his death and there was nothing he could do to avoid it, which is crazy. And the final shot of like Night Eye getting hit by the spikes is so brutal. It's a very cool shot, but it's like a very brutal shot, and that's basically the reason why Night Eye dies. Eventually, Eri comes back because of Overhaul manipulation, and but Deku comes back, and now it's Deku versus Overhaul, which is where the fight gets really, really good. Really love when the fight gets into the town, and you see Deku having to use 100%, which is really cool. I also love Eri on Deku's back because it basically also means that Eri is fighting her biggest villain because she's the reason that Deku isn't dying with one for all. Because basically, at 100%, his body is meant to kill himself, he is meant to die. But Eri keeps reversing time so quickly that like every damage that should happen to his body, it gets negated. And this is a really lovely moment with Deku and Eri, where Deku like praises Eri's crack, but where before Eri crack for her would have been like a monster crack. It would have been horrible because it's only been used to cause harm and be a negative impact on her life. But this is the first time somebody is genuinely praising a crack, which is a very nice moment. And Deku versus Overall is so good because it's such a one-sided fight, but you see how fast Deku moving, how easy he's throwing Overhaul into the air, how like his speed blitzing Overhaul. It's a very good choreography, very good fight choreography fight scene, with how it's just a very good one-sided mode. And every time Overhaul is trying to upgrade, it's just not doing enough to even damage Deku, which makes us in the future really hype to see Deku actually being able to use one for all truly by himself. I also sort of like the blue, like light that he sort of has around him, which is a really nice looking design. Really love Taku sort of having the multiple punches in the air. Um, it's sort of very similar to recently like Maki versus the Saiyan clan with one of the characters in the Saiyan being able to do that move. Um, Also like in Hunter x Hunter, Netero-san sort of had like 1 hour punches. It was very similar. That looking shot with 1 hour punches going down, it looked really cool. And then his final punch on Overhaul is really really cool to see. I love the impact shot. It looks great, and like Deku in that moment looks like a really great hero. I just love how he creates a creator when he punches Overhaul. It's really really cool. And while Deku is fighting and winning the fight against Overhaul, you have Night Eye like dying but looking over the fight. I've seen that Deku has changed the future, and I really love this because it gives Night Eye hope that the future can change. It gives him the conclusion that like the future could change if it's one person trying to change it, but when a bunch of people are connected with their feelings, it can change the future. And him telling that to All Might before he passes is really great. Him also telling Lemillion that I can see your future and you will become the greatest hero. And by the end of the show, Lemillion is #1 hero on the Billboard charts. It's like this is the one future that must not change. It's such a good way for Nate Eye to go out. It's a good conclusion to his story arc. The reason I love the overhaul fight is because of it gives 3 character moments to shine. It concludes Night Eye's sort of story arc. It also it's the first time we see Taku going 100% in All for One. I think that's a disappointment with him going 100% in One for All mode. Favorite fight in My Hero is Deku versus All for One. Technically, Deku and everyone versus All for One. But yeah, this fight starts out with like a banging revelation with like learning the All for One planted the seed of hatred in Shikaragi's father. He also stole Shigaraki original crack, which I think Shigaraki original crack was like a flying one, similar to his grandmother. And he sort of took that at an early age and gave him the guy which he took, funnily enough, from Overhaul, which is a really cool lore drop. And it was an imperfect crack. And so, like, that's really cool. And then to learn about, like, All for One had this entirety all planned out. And then he, like, kills Shigaraki and takes over his body. And also the way All for One looks in Shigaraki's body is so cool, especially with the hand covering the mouth. While he does kill Shigaraki, he also loses a bunch of cracks that so he has a lot less cracks in the final fight than he would if Shigaraki was still around or if he had to be defeated by Bakugo. Also, the visual of Daku with no arms on the crowd, trying to get up and still fight All for One is really, really cool. It also looks so brutal with his arms bleeding, but it's also like really cool reference because like early on in the My Hero, Daku will always like break and damage his arms, and multiple times doctors would say eventually you're gonna stop not being able to use your arms. And now we got to the stage because of the Shigaraki fight that Deku is now completely hopeless with no arms and trying to get back up and finish All for One. I really love the assist that comes in from Shadow Dialman, and Shadow Sugarrush, yeah, when those 3 jump in to help Deku and then you have Aishara emerging, it's really cool to see like everyone like trying to defend Midoriya, and you even get like the reaction from Eraserhead seeing Deku lost both his arms. And Deku even tells him like he doesn't have his powers anymore. He doesn't have for all, which is like basically like, oh, how can Deku still fight in this battle? Like he's completely hopeless, but like he still wants to fight and defeat All for One, which is just shows you how good of a hero Deku is. Then we find out that Eraserhead has Aries' horn. With that, he's able to use Aries' power of rewind time, and that's how Deku is able to gain back both his arms, even though he still does not have one for all, only the arm is left. Eraser had the line of saying, "You go die until you hear Aries sing." It's like really amazing. It's just really emotional. The reason why this final fight works is because of like the callbacks and like the emotion in this final fight. I also just love the fact that we got Ari basically helping Deku, so that it brings back all the relevant characters from My Hero to help Deku in his final battle. I love that Deku is overwhelmed and starts crying because Ali Deku would be like a crybaby. I would cry a lot. I know this time when he's crying, it's more hype. It's more like, I'm glad. Look at all the people you touch being a hero, all the people you saved. The fact that a guy is willing to give Deku his sword, other civilians are willing to help their heroes with medical supplies. Like, that's really dope to see, especially because we read with like the heroes being hated by society, and now because of Deku, they're willing to trust in heroes again, and that's really cool to see. The main reason I love this battle is you see everyone defending Deku. Doesn't matter, like everyone we've seen in this series is defending Deku as Deku runs towards All for One. And Deku is completely crackless. So like I love the fact that Ayumi is the first person to take Deku's hand. Basically, Ayumi that starts Deku's run towards All for One. And then you have other members of Class 1A getting the big moment to shine against One for All. I mean, sorry, against All for One. Whether it's Floppy or Tentacle with helping Deku mobility, or Zero coming in with the assist to save Endeavor and Shoto away from All for One. You just have so many cool moments as he runs to try and defeat All for One, where like all the other members of Class 1A of other superheroes are like holding the light and blocking attacks from All for One, attacking All for One, being basically bait. I love the fact that like All for One admits that like something that All Might didn't have was weakness, because when you have weakness you have people joining together and becoming really strong. Class 1A and the rest of the hero by themselves are nothing to him, but now you got a bunch of them becoming annoying to him. Now he's struggling. I just love you get to see, especially you get to see every member of Class 1A do something. And the ones who you don't see because they're injured, like Uravati and Tokiyama, those two are voting Deku on from like the phones. And you actually hear Deku being voted on from like people watching the TV, and they're all cheering for him, which I love. I just want to go through some of the cool moments while Deku is running towards All for One. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but like Gentle Criminal giving Deku an extra step so he can bounce to increase his mobility was really dope. Jiro and Pressure Make joining together and using a sound barrier to deflect the attack is really cool. And then you also got a bunch of people jumping in to sort of block a hit from All for One. And that's as like you got Shadow in there, you got Diamond in there. They're all tanking a hit. Well, Deku is told to just keep running forward and to save his strength. I also really love that throughout Deku's run, you hear other heroes, civilians saying, "You can do it, you can do it." Like, it's so emotional. And the music that plays while he's running is so good. I think it's You Say Run that's playing. It's just really great music. And then I love that Ida is the one that grabs his hand again when he needs the last little bit of help to get him to All for One. And again, it's Ida that like comes in clutch and is like his fast friend at UA High School is now going to be the first guy to grab his hand and make sure he reaches the finish line, which is just dope. And then on the other side is I love that you hear All Might sort of talking about Deku as a hero and how Deku has been his hero, which is amazing. It's like a great acknowledgement that Deku hero. All Might now says that All Might now consider Deku to be his hero, which is just a very great book close, very great like character close for Deku. Is very much, as the episode was called, Deku Racer, it very much, in this episode, Deku did rise. I just love All Might having so much faith in Deku. I love the flashback used in this fight. When you see people running and you see how Deku inspired them, how Deku touched them, I really love that. And then I also love the final you can do it comes from his mum. That's really great because at the beginning of the series, his mum was like, I'm sorry you was born crackless. I know, and she's always been kind of like, I'm too worried that you're being a hero because look how much injuries you're getting. And now she's the one that is basically saying, you can do it. I believe in you. Like that's such a good story arc for her, his mom and for Daku and his mother relationship. I also love the final batch. Well, Deku does destroy All for One, and then All for One sort of just regenerates, and then Bakugo and Kurogiri sort of help out to allow Deku to have another go. And Deku finishes him this time. I love that while Deku fights his body, All for One body from the outside, Shigaraki is punching him from the inside, which is really dope. It also brings Shigaraki at the seventh user of One for All to like they have a good storyline. Well, the reason why Shigaraki didn't disappear was his grandmother was keep holding him on and making sure was okay. So that allowed Shigaraki to help Deku bunch All for One from inside All for One's body. And I love this because it sort of Shigaraki getting justice for what All for One did to him, for All for One using his pain to make Shigaraki his puppet. And then, yeah, I really love the final hit. It looks amazing from Deku and Shigaraki killing All for One. And you see how Deku is still kind. Well, he doesn't have any hatred to All for One. He feels sorry for All for One. He says, you're just a lonely man. And then he still gives All for One some time with his brother before he goes away. The two things I love at the end of the fight. The first one is Shigaraki asking Deku to give Spinner a message for him, which is nice. Sort of a good goodbye moment for these two characters. And the other one is he punched the sky and made the sky, which is so amazing. It's like a better version of like All Might stance, where like instead of him doing it on the floor, he's doing it in the air. The reason why I love this fight is because it makes every single character put in work to help defeat All for One. It's sort of the emotional flashback works really well. Everyone telling him to, you can do it. Everyone believing in Deku. Deku really becoming everyone's savior. Is just the build up is done so well. Moments of like his friends helping him is done so well. That's why it's my fourth favorite fight of the entire series. My third favorite fight in My Hero is Deku versus all of Class 1A. I think this fight is really good because it's a very good emotional fight. And both sides are like holding back. Deku just trying to escape, Class 1A is just trying to restrain Deku. But it also shows how strong Deku is that like it literally takes the combined strength of Class 1A just to restrain him. But yeah, this fight is so good because majority of Class 1A are doing something. The usage of flashback, the usage of flashback, the speeches that the Class 1A is given to try and convince Deku to come back. It's just so well done. You see how Deku is like trying to escape, but all of Class 1A is just holding him down. You get really great speeches and like flashback moments or where Taku has helped his fellow classmate, where he's helped Froppy or like Froppy talks about like sort of her regret of not trying to stop Deku from trying to save Bakugo when Bakugo was captured. you have Tayo Man sort of talking about like how Deku helped him against the Night Height, a sort of got revenge for him because Tayo Man got like used by Night Height. And you got like every single member of Class 1A, apart from I think the only two that don't do anything is Ayome, which makes sense because he's the traitor, and Invisible Girl. But everyone else is really involved in this fight, and they're just trying to convince Deku to come back to Class 1A. I think one of the coolest moments in Momo using machinery with the help of Tokiyama to just hold and pin Deku down to this pillar. But again, showing how strong Deku is, he breaks out of it. I also really like Sugar Rush sort of saying that you good, I won't let you use any of my sweets or ingredients to cook for Eri, which is like really nice and like sweet, but it's also like really sad because Deku responds to like, she doesn't need me, you could do it yourself. Like it's very much of like friends trying to, basically Deku's friends are trying to take him out of this depression state. And the music that is playing, the flashbacks that they are using, that are short and sweet, but like they get the point across, is so well done. You also see how strong Deku is. Like Shoto puts an ice wall and like traps Deku, and Deku just easily breaks out of it. Gota sort of surrounding him with like bats, and Deku just escapes that. Like Deku levels up so much that like nothing that really Class 1A is doing is actually able to restrain him. And throughout this fight, Deku is literally just holding back and like putting his friends to safety. Like when Mineta like grabs onto him, he softly puts him down. But like this is just really cool just to see how much Deku leveled up because before with like Shoto and Bakugo and even some of the others, he would have been able to escape that easily. So it shows how strong Deku has gotten with one for all powers. I also like sort of the finishing move to save Deku. It takes the combined might of Shoto, Ida, and Bakugo to basically push Ida into the to make Ida reach Deku. I also like Pinky new move, like she sort of covers them in slime so they are able to like use Shoto's ramp to just fly higher so they are able to reach Deku. But yeah, this is also a really cool callback to when Deku went to save Bakugo. It's basically Bakugo admitting that, oh, I will be able to reach your hand, but the person who can reach your hand is Ida, which is a great callback to when Deku's like, I go reach Bakugo's hand, but Kishima, Red Riot, you can. So it's basically just a reverse of that, which is just really dope and a really good callback. I also really love the final moments of like Ida grabbing Deku's hand. I like he's the one that sort of saves him. I also love Deku. Well, once Ida grabs Deku's hand, Deku can't fight anymore. This is the first time sort of Ida beats Deku, and it's just a very good emotional moment of like this is what Ida wants to believe in. This is the hero that Ida wants. Like Ida's line that like Genium is gonna be the hero that takes the hand of any lost child and lead them on the right path is so good. It's such a good line. It's such a very good from like when Ida started. What a big part of his sort of hero journey was in the early stages. He just wanted revenge against Stain, and Deku and Shoto were the one to like save him from that. I know Deku is going down this wrong path, and now Ida is like making it up to him and saving him from it. Him being the one to literally be the one that breaks Deku out of his depression is really dope to see. I also love the like Deku has to learn from this fight, he doesn't need to fight all for one by himself. He doesn't have to take the right of the road by himself. Like he has peers that he can rely on and that he can share the burden with. And Class 1A in this fight proven to him that they can keep up with him. They can hold some of that burden for him, which is really nice to see all of Class 1A got a good moment to show what they're capable of in this fight, and to show them, and to show the audience and Daku what Daku means to them. Another great moment in this fight is basically Bakugo apologizing to Daku about bullying Daku. Like, even though by this point in the story, Daku and Bakugo sort of problems have resolved with each other, it's still nice to have Bakugo go and apologize to Daku, knowing how much pain Daku is in right now. But also, it's a way for Bakugo to convince Daku to come back to Class 1A and to use their help. Like, Daku doesn't have to do everything alone. Class 1A can share some of the burden with him. And it's like a way of like, Taku, don't look down on us. We can help you. And that's a very nice thing for him to do. Also, I think it's a great Bakugo character moment. Like, it's one of the best moments in the story that Bakugo does for me. Because it's him owning up to his mistake, owning up to the fact that he wasn't a very good to Deku, he wasn't very nice to Deku. He was 100% in the wrong in Deku, and he takes that responsibility. And that's a very good to see, is a very good resolution to a certain point of his life. But I also just love this fight for many things, such as Deku sort of crying while trying to run away. And you also see how like Daku eyes go from like darkness to like seeing the light when he takes Ida's hand. You have so many moments with different students in Class 1A sort of giving their speeches and holding down Daku for a short time. You got Bakugo apologies, you got the great usage of flashback. This is why I think it's the third best fight in My Hero, because I would argue this fight is the most emotional fight in My Hero because it's friends versus friends. Class 1A are just trying to help Deku while Deku is trying to reject them. My second favorite fight in My Hero is All Might versus All For One the first time they fight each other in the show. I think this is really good because this fight not only changes the shape of My Hero and it goes into the future, with now there being no symbol of hope left, but it also basically the same as Debbie versus Shoto and Deku versus Shigaraki. It lives up to the hype of All Might versus All For One. There was really built up as All Might last moments and it very much delivers. The amount of like pain and suffering that All Might has to endure in this fight to win makes this fight worth being number two in my eyes. Fight choreography in this fight is really well done. The animation is high quality. The music is great. This fight really has everything. It has really good flashbacks, especially when Deku and Bakugo are watching the screen to see All Might fights. You also got All Might saving Gran Torino, and I do love Gran Torino, like giving advice to All Might, like telling All Might to calm down. And you also see that like his time limit is going very fast, and you see how powerful All For One is because he's able to use multiple attacks and multiple powers. Like one cool move he does is he's able to, when All Might is about to punch All For One in the face, he's able to like warp Gran Torino in front of him, so All Might punches Gran Torino, which is just really cool to see. And you see how much like how strong we've seen All Might be so far in the series. Now we see how outmatched and how like much he is struggling. Now this is the fact you see how much he is struggling and how weak he's gotten, and is shown so well. This is the fight where we learn the truth about Shigaraki, how Shigaraki is actually the grandson of the Southern's One for All user and All Might's master. And this is really dope because you get to see how like All Might is known for his smile. And you get to see his smile breaking in this fight. You get to see like angry All Might, which is really dope. I mean, we've seen angry All Might a few times throughout the show. The first time I really remember is when the villains crashed UI training center and All Might comes in to save everyone and he is angry there. But this is the one time he's like angry because of hatred because he hated what All for One did. But again, this goes back to seeing how much All Might is suffering in this fight. I also love that like this is the fight where everyone sees the truth about All Might, the truth about like him with the injury. Skinny All Might is revealed. Everyone see what All Might really looks like. That's really dope to see. And then you got All Might having to still smile, having to fight because there's a civilian trapped, and that civilian is the reason he's able to like get his second ring and still continue fighting in order to save people, in order to be the symbol of peace, in order to be like the hero that like he put himself on. He put himself onto this pedestal, and now he has to keep on it. And this civilian who's like asking All Might to help her, asking All Might not to give up, sort of encourage him to keep fighting, which is really dope to see because it's sort of a way of us seeing like, oh, heroes inspire civilians, but civilians also inspire hero to keep on fighting. And that's a really cool dynamic to see. I really love when All Might has no power left. He's literally using the ambush of One for All. And you sort of see his time limit slowly going out. And you see like One for All slowly just going out and he just keeping it alive. And then you get Skinny All Might versus All for One, and that's really dope to see. I really love the bench glide the All for One or All Might do. It's really well done. I also enjoy the like. There's a part of the fight where All Might literally puts one of his arms into his like muscle mode, and so he put all his power into I think his right arm just to fight. So he's sort of looking like kind of freaky when he's fighting, and that's really dope to see because it shows how much effort and how much he's on his last stand, All Might. But yeah, this fight is got really high stakes and is really emotional because of the time limit that All Might is under. For me, that what makes this fight so special or so like engaging is because of the time limit, because of how much All Might is suffering, and because All Might finds a way to break through and defeat All for One. It's also a really fun fight because of the dynamic. Like All for One is also fighting for the success of his successor, while All Might is doing the same thing for Deku, which is a fun dynamic to have. Throughout this fight, you get to see like All Might or All for One trade the blows and sustaining like really cool injuries, and it just goes to show how cool All Might is and how epic he is that he's able to still keep up with All for One in his skinny form. Unlike All for One, All Might basically has no powers now. He's losing, and you get to see the picture of the amber slowly going out in the fight, and he puts everything into his last punch, United States of Smash, and that punch is amazing. I also really love this in anime whenever they do like black lines, and they do sort of similar to like a manga drawing. And that what happens when he does the United States of Smash. It's a very good finishing move. I also love that he's able to do his fighting pose, his victory pose, one last time as All Might before he lose his power completely, because that also builds up the hype and sort of builds up the civilians' hope in like the world. Basically, everyone starts believing in All Might and believing in heroes even more. after this fight, because when All For One appeared, everyone was terrified, especially how much he was harming and pushing back All Might. And now to see All Might victorious, everyone has their hope again. After the All Might fight is really, really cool because All Might basically has no power, and then he gives Deku a final message, which is your turn next or you're next. That's what basically his message. Everyone in the crowd is like cheering, like because it's sort of got a double meaning. For like civilians, everyone's thinking, oh, he's looking at the next villain that is meant to cause harm. But like Taku knows the truth. And also this is the really fun thing about this fight, is the fact that also Bakugo figures out Taku got his power from All Might because of this scene. Because Taku knew that All Might was saying that like he's out of power, you're next. I really love that my hero basically stuck to All Might no longer be involved in hero work. He was still training Deku, but you never really saw him go out until he fights All For One again. That's the next time you see him go out. So you get a very long time with it just being no All Might as a hero, and that's really cool to see. That's why I love this fight so much, because it has a massive consequence in the world of my hero. Taku crying, realizing, oh, it's all up to me now. Now I'm the one responsible for taking down the big bad. I'm the one that meant to be the symbol of hope for everyone. That is really dope to see. It is really dope that Bakugo figures it out. I think the reason this is the second best fight of my hero is because of All Might suffering the pain All Might's in, and him just keep pushing forward to defeat All For One. This fight lifts up to the hype of All For One, and it also changes the shape of my hero going forward from this point. Favorite fight in My Hero Academia is Armored All Might versus All For One. This is just because this fight is really epic. It's sort of All Might's last stand. You get so many good emotional moments. You get so many good action moments. There's so many cool moments All Might has. And again, you see All Might struggling on his last leg, which I think is really cool. And that the sense of like death is in the air for All Might, especially because of the foreshadowing by Night Eye. We also get a really great flashback into All Might's past. We sort of get the story of how he wants to be a hero, with him sort of reading comic books with his mum, and then we also get his like first meeting with his master, and you get to see the devastation in the background, or like the world before All Might was like a world of like many distractions, many people feeling in danger, and All Might tells his master he wants to be a symbol of peace, which these flashbacks are done so well and makes the fight more emotional. However, it does also raise so many death flags for All Might, which also makes you more invested in this fight and makes this fight more hyped. But you also got uh, All Might talking about like the road he walked down, and like looking back who he's inspired. And that again is a great All Might moment. It's a great moment in this fight. It makes it more emotional and final, but it also raises the death flag for All Might even more, which works so well in this fight because it basically increases the tension throughout this entire fight. I also like this fight because it shows you the personality of All Might and how good of a person he is. How like well he inspired all these children and people in the world. Look at what Class 1A has inspired him to do. And I love throughout this fight all his moves in his armored suit. moves that are very much come from his Class 1A, whether that's using Pinky Crack to throw acid at All for One, or whether to use tentacles to get more limbs, or even Coda's ability to have like little bats in the sky to give him location on All for One. All those abilities that he has are sort of abilities he took from teaching Class 1A and are used in this fight, what makes this fight so much more impactful and emotional. It also so cool seeing a teacher learn from his students. And I also love this fight because we get to see All Might being kind of cocky. Like, I love that All Might sort of says the line, I've never gone into a fight thinking I would lose, which is a crazy line to say, but it's actually really cool. I also love how many times the iron suit starts slowly breaking away and getting destroyed, because it shows that, like, the same with Deku. It shows sort of the end of like All Might at the end of like his fight, because slowly and slowly his suit gets slowly destroyed. We also get like so many times where like All Might is actually dominating All for One. He's how many times did All for One have to rewind against All Might? I think like 3 different times, because of how well All Might strategized against All for One, but also how well All Might taunts All for One, like saying that a 50-year-old man, Crackless, is beating your ass is hilarious. And that's why this fight is one of my favorites. When Stein comes in, you get a really cool moment of Stein sort of investigated where All Might and All for One battles taking place, like he's smelling the blood, which is really cool. And while Stein coming in is a very good way to wrap up his storyline, Stein ultimately doesn't do anything. He sort of paralyzed All for One for a moment, which sort of delays All Might's death that may or may not come. But like, and then basically, I love that All for One predicted that Stein would attack him, which makes sense because All for One knows how Stein behaves, and so he would know that, oh, Stein's the only one that did the sort of surrendered to me at the prison. He escaped by himself. He's gonna try and find a way to take me out and defend All Might. And so I love that All for One found a perfect solution to counter Stein and then easily kill Stein. It's also a very good death scene for Stein, because finally he sort of dies being a hero, because he dies saving All Might, and then you have him sort of just seeing All Might trying to run to his rescue, and knowing that All Might isn't gonna make it in time. He literally sort of like prays to All Might and say like, you are my hero, and then All for One not only steals Stein's power but kills him, and it's a very good death. And then after like Stein dies, then Hercules sort of goes and protects All Might and gets completely destroyed. So we sort of lose Hercules as well, even though Hercules is just like a equipment, and All Might and Stein is a person. We also get sort of All Might waiting for his death, because he sort of sees Night Eye, he sees his master, and they're very much like the death flags are very raised, basically telling us, oh, this is the moment that All Might dies. I love that you get to see like people watching All Might about to die on the screen. This talks about the end of an era at the beginning of a new. And then we get the slow death of like All Might getting carried away, and then slowly All for One is slowly trying to rip him apart, and we get to see so many flashbacks of All Might, and we also get to sort of see like All Might a Deku relationship, flashbacks, and it just really cements that, oh, this is the moment where Night Eye saw All Might is gonna die. To be fair, you see everyone reacting to All Might's about to die. I'm crying while I'm watching these All Might slowly feeling as if this is his last moment. You got some amazing flashback with his master. One of the coolest flashbacks we get to see with his master is his master dying to All for One, and his master saying, "Oh, you're gonna lose to All Might because he's crazier than you." And that's so dope because the last thing All Might tries to do is blow himself up with All for One. And what makes this death that is about to come to All Might even worse is that it's not going to be a heroic death because he tries to blow himself up and take All for One with him, and All for One just counters that and then uses Stain's power to make All Might paralyzed. So now All Might is completely defenseless as All for One is going to slowly kill him. And All Might is literally talking about the next generation, about leaving things to Bakugo and Deku. And you sort of get the sense, even throughout this fight, all his attacks are named after Class 1A superhero names. So he's basically, throughout this fight, he's basically giving everything to the next generation and leaving everything with the next generation. So everyone believes at this moment in time, this is it for All Might. He's about to die a tragic and painful death. Also get to see All for One slowly like ripping All Might apart. And you see how painful this death is gonna be. And then we get lucky because we get to see like all the civilians voting for somebody to save All Might. We see Deku sort of crying and seeing like All Might is becoming more visible in One for All. And then we get like Bakugo also waking up, and then we get Bakugo rescuing All Might, which I really love. And it also don't make it doesn't feel cheap to me, because All Might being rescued by Bakugo saves All Might, but it doesn't change the fact that this fight made it believable for me that All Might would die. It doesn't change the fact that like this fight I was very worried about All Might. I was very emotional for All Might safety. And I feel like we got enough foreshadowing that the future can be changed from the Night Eye. Before Night Eye died, he told All Might that like the future can be changed with a strong feelings and a lot of people coming together with the same feelings. And that's basically what happened. Deku and Bakugo worked together to make sure Bakugo saves All Might from certain death. And then we also got so many people praying and asking somebody to save All Might, and it succeeds. And I do think, even though we get like throughout this fight, a lot of red flags were shown for All Might's death, I think saving All Might was done in a way where it doesn't make any of those red flags feel like wasted. And we still get like a moment with like All Might looking at Night Eye and saying, "Oh, I thought this was when I died." And then Night Eye says, "Oh, this isn't a comic book. You have to live for like Deku said, like Deku being the number one hero. You promised that you will see him become the number one hero, and that hasn't happened yet. So you have to stay alive," which sort of makes up for like not killing All Might. I also think it's just a cool way to have one show that the master character doesn't actually die. But yeah, this is my favorite fight in all of My Hero. I'm wondering what your favorite fights are in My Hero. But yeah, this is my favorite fight because I think it's the most emotional fight. It's the most cool All Might has ever been because he's crackless and he's using his students' attacks throughout the fight because all his fight is based on what his students can do. And like the emotional moment of like seeing all might about to die and then being saved is really cool, and the flashback throughout this fight make this fight emotional. But with that being said, that's the end of my top 10 list of my favorite fights in My Hero. If you want, tell me your favorite fights in the comments below. And hope you enjoyed this video, and see you guys next time.